With free agency well underway, it finally seems like the last big domino piece has fallen into place as DeMar DeRozan ends up with the Sacramento Kings on a 3-year, $74 million deal from the Chicago Bulls. But again, I'm really not sure that this was the best move for the Kings, even though I don't see really any fits out there that were exactly puzzle piece-esque for DeMar DeRozan. Before going in depth on his fit with Sacramento, I want to kind of talk about the other options that really would have been somewhat realistic for DeMar, but that's the issue, is there wasn't a whole lot out there as a market for DeMar in terms of really good fits, because you look at someone like the Spurs and maybe he would have been a good fit, but I'm not sure that the Spurs at this point want to put in chips like that to trying to compete right now with Wemby being as young as he is and with them trying to probably still develop some of their younger players. So I don't know how realistic that would have been a fit. I know he likes Pop. He could have maybe gone back there, possibly the Clippers to fill in that void with Paul George if they're really desperate. But again, these are all kind of reaches. So that Kings fit now you're talking about, he slides in to that starting small forward position. He gets them some extra ball handling help. He gets them to that extra shot creation help. It's just I'm really, really highly doubting that was their biggest need this offseason because they're still a really bad defensive team. After having a historic year offensively, setting records for offensive rating at 119.4 in the 2022-2023 season, the Kings took a little bit of a drop this year, dropping all the way down to 116.2, which ranked just 12th in the league. And now two teams surpassed their record of offensive rating with the Boston Celtics and Indiana Pacers this season. So it seems they've taken a step backwards in terms of offense, and although their defense did get better last year, it wasn't nearly enough of a jump for them to be contenders. This past season, they were 17th in opponents' points per game, 21st in opponent field goal percentage, 29th in opponent three-point percentage, and 14th in defensive rating. So really, all statistically, they were dead smack in the middle, average or below average in every single category. And even with the eye test, you look at the team like the Kings and you see that roster and you don't see a defensive lockdown, someone on the perimeter that can go up against, another team's best player. Really, Keon Ellis is their best defender right now, and not to disrespect him, but he's a 6'1" guy. He's not going to be out there, guarding the Anthony Edwards. He's not going to be out there guarding the Nikola Jokic's, the Luka Doncic's, any guys that are over like 6'2", 6'3". So I really just struggle to look at this roster and, find that defensive stopper, and getting DeRozan to come in, that's going to help that offense and hopefully maybe get them that offensive identity back. But again, I just think the defense is too much of a glaring hole, especially when you talk about a guy like DeRozan who's been a pretty much black hole on defense for most of his career. You look at the defensive rating of the Bulls in this past season, they were 114.6 with DeMar DeRozan on the court. Off the court, they were 110.6. That would have ranked tied second in the NBA with the Boston Celtics, and with him on the court, they were tied 16th, so they were dead smack in the middle. And that kind of goes back to my point of if he's on the Kings now, the Kings already struggled to hide Domantas Sabonis as it is. If their starting lineup is really what some people are thinking it's going to be, with De'Aaron Fox having Malik Monk step up into that starting two position instead of being the sixth man, then DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and Domantas Sabonis, that genuinely might be the worst defensive five in all of basketball. Like, I'm seriously just wondering who's going to guard who, especially come playoff time when you have to play teams like, even like the Clippers who have Kawhi, the Mavericks with Luka Doncic, again, like I talked about them before, all these guys I'm listing, the Suns, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. Who the hell on the Kings is going to be guarding those players? Because don't come and tell me that Keon Ellis is doing it. Again, like I said, great defender, he's too short. I think part of the reason they traded Davion Mitchell was because having those two guys was a bit redundant. But again, there's just really no wing defenders on this team that I'm confident can go out there and slow down any, even close to star level players, much less even some role players that might have some hot nights. And you're going to probably see that a lot against this Kings team, because I think it's going to come down to how they were 2 seasons ago, where they're just going to be trying to outscore teams. And even though we saw the Pacers have a good run in the playoffs this year with mainly offense being a very offensive loaded team, their defense picked it up a lot in the playoffs. And I'm just simply not sure that with DeRozan especially, this Kings team is going to be capable of having even a competent defense, especially come playoff time. With opponents shooting almost 40% from 3 against the Kings, DeRozan again is a big concern because his ability to not really be good at switching and his laziness on defense, not really knowing where to be ever, his missing rotations, it's going to be a big issue because I don't see anyone on this Kings team that's really capable of, hitting their rotations consistently. They need 5 guys out there who are going to be able to know to be in their spots, when to be in help, when to come over from the weak side. And again, I just don't see that happening with this Kings team. I don't think they have the personnel, and that's an issue. It just is. Like, their offense should be very good. I will talk about that, and I want to sort of say that I think their offense will be very good. DeRozan is going to help with that. They were one of the worst fourth quarter scoring teams in the NBA last season, looking at the numbers. 27.2 points per game in the fourth quarter, which ranked just 24th in the league, and 27th shooting percentage from the field in the fourth quarter. So DeRozan, being one of the best fourth quarter performers in the NBA, coming in will help a lot. I will say that. And offensively, they could use another shot creator. It's just really hard when that shot creator coming in is another, zero on defense, and they already have multiple zeros on defense on their team. Again, it's just, how are they going to compete with the big dogs, with the guys that have the superstars? Because, other teams have people that can guard De'Aaron Fox or Sabonis, or contain them at least. They've contained Sabonis very well in the playoffs because he's one of the biggest playoff droppers, of this probably decade. And then you look at DeRozan, who's also a big playoff dropper. So there you go with two playoff droppers. I just struggle to see how this, breeds long-term success. Yes, they will be a fun regular season team. Yes, they will score a lot of points. But will they have a chance at winning anything legitimate? I just don't think so. The two real rotation pieces that the Kings lost this offseason were Davion Mitchell and Harrison Barnes, who was obviously part of that trade to get DeRozan. And together, they shoot about 14 shots a game. DeRozan is coming off a season where he shot a little over 17 a game. So I think, him just absorbing the shots from guys that are missed is going to be good. I think offensively, they are going to improve. I will say that. They are going to be a better offensive team because they can take less pressure off Sabonis, less pressure off Fox. They have less things that they can focus in on because everyone in that starting five is capable of getting you a bucket if Malik Monk is, in that starting five. Regardless if he's a six-man, he will still be in that, five-man lineup at times when they want to go extra offense. So looking at that, yes, they're going to be one of the most dangerous offensive teams in the league, but then come playoff time, I don't know how DeRozan and Sabonis are going to translate, especially together. Sabonis is someone that's great at finding cutters and someone who's great at finding open shooters, but DeRozan has been one of those players for most of his career, hasn't been all that effective off the ball. So I'm really interested to see if DeRozan either changes his game or maybe, with Sabonis being so good at finding cutters and orchestrating the offense from the low post and even the high post at times, I'm wondering if that helps DeMar DeRozan develop his off-the-ball game, and I'm hoping it does, because if they do, this offense can be very scary. Again, it's just really, it's quite simple as that. The defense is bad, and that's an issue. There's no denying the talent level offensively for this Kings team, but I still do question the fit with DeRozan going there on that side of the court, because DeRozan isn't a prolific three-point shooter and someone who's really been reluctant to take a legitimate amount of threes over the course of his career. DeRozan shot just under 3 attempts per game this past season at a 33% clip. So, with DeMar DeRozan, you're not getting someone who's going to be an elite perimeter threat. He's someone that's going to do all of his damage in the mid-range and the inside. This is a big reason why I'm questioning the fit with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, who are two guys that are very good at driving and kicking, finding the shooters after penetrating the defense. And that's something that DeRozan likes to do, not necessarily someone that's looking to play make first, but he's looking to drive for his own shot. And most of his assists do come from that kind of drive and kick situation. He's not really the most prolific pick-and-roll operator. He's more of an isolation player. And, that's kind of an issue, I think, with this team, because you have 3 out of the 5 guys in the starting lineup that are not going to be a threat from outside. So unless De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis have some, three-point revelation, I really think that it's going to be a problem with the spacing on the court at a lot of times, because Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and Malik Monk are the really only perimeter threats on this team. Last season, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, and Malik Monk all had over a 22 usage percentage. So these are guys that all like to have the ball in their hands, and that's probably going to limit the effectiveness of DeRozan, because you look at DeRozan, and if he's not giving you a lot of points and a lot of offense, his defense is going to hurt you. And if you ask any Bulls fans, they will tell you this, because it's been a problem in the past. You had that defensive duo of him and Vucevic, and defensively, that reminds me a lot of Sabonis and DeRozan, because Vucevic is another one of those guys that is very poor defensively and moves like he has his feet in quicksand. So matching DeRozan, who's a poor defender, with a center who can't really, fall back and protect the paint, I don't know how they're going to guard anyone. Luka will eat this team alive. Anthony Edwards will eat this team alive. They're not going to guard anyone. Some of the bad teams are going to score against them, and that's really my issue, because, in a 7-game series where teams are going to figure you out a little offensively, how do you come back with that on the other side of the ball? And if the Kings literally can't, well, then they're fucked. To end on a slightly positive note, DeMar DeRozan will be the best isolation scorer that De'Aaron Fox has played with in his career. So, on the good side of things, that means that De'Aaron Fox doesn't have to do as much, and he can conserve some energy, hopefully use some more of that energy on defense maybe, because he has the tools to be a solid defender, at least, not someone who's negative defensively, which his stats so far tell he is. But again, it's also just about they don't have to, or they can't hone in on Fox at the end of fourth quarters or at the end of games because DeRozan is someone that can go out there and get buckets too. Even though he's going to be 35, he's still coming off a 24-point-per-game season, like I said. So the dude is capable of going out there and getting buckets. Still one of the most clutch scorers in the league. It's just really, can he do it in the playoffs? And, if he does make the playoffs with this Kings team, on DeRozan's side of things, this is probably the best supporting cast that he's ever had going into the playoffs, at least offensively. So that pressure for him to go in and carry a team on that side of the ball isn't going to be as big as it was when he was with Chicago or Toronto, and he really crumbled under the pressure. So again, for DeRozan, at least offensively, this is kind of a dream come true for him. The other side of the ball, like I said, it's definitely a massive question mark and something that I just think you can't ignore, even though you want to celebrate this signing. I think it's cool for Kings fans. It's good for them to have something to celebrate, having signing like this. It's been a really long time, really ever. They haven't had something like this where a multi-time all-star comes and joins their team. So cool for the Kings fans. I just think it's not going to be cool come April and May.